Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to the Locked On MLB, Locked On Diamondbacks Crossover, as we do every Monday, as I casually call it, Mondays with Millard. Who am I, Mitch Albom? Ladies and gentlemen, every Monday, your pal Sully, that's me. I'm Paul Francis Sullivan. I'm normally the host of Locked On MLB. This Bajakalup right over there, that's Millard Thomas. He's normally the host of Locked On Diamondbacks. We get together to go over the weekend's games, see with the state of baseball, and inevitably yap about something we didn't plan about. This show, as you hear my dog just outside, is being dropped on the 20th day of June, 2022, and that's not insignificant. I'll tell you why in just a moment. And you can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods, same handle for Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Hey, Millard Thomas, if people are making Locked On MLB their first listen, then their second listen should be Locked On Diamondbacks. Tell people where they can find that.
At Creator Thomas24 for my personal account, or look up Locked On Diamondbacks, both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle.
Okay, well, we're going to go right off the bat here and talk about what turned out to be kind of a significant game involving, drum roll, everybody, the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Hey.
And hey, you got Christian Walker's got some big power. Someone by the name of Buddy Kennedy. Christian Walker homered twice, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah. Big game.
Peyton Smith homered. Buddy Kennedy. I wouldn't recognize Buddy Kennedy if he came in wearing a T-shirt saying, "Hello, my name is Buddy Kennedy." But Kennedy's hit a big slam today against the Minnesota Twins. And look at no one's saying the Diamondbacks are going to party like it's 2001 or even 1999 for that matter. But the Diamondbacks are not a pushover team. They're only 4 games under 500. And despite having kind of a rough couple of weeks, the last couple of weeks, they have won a couple of quality games, including winning this series against the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, it was a nice little series for the D-backs who, like you said, have been struggling against these mediocre teams with the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Cincinnati Reds, really the whole NL Central, the Chicago Cubs too, have been giving D-backs trouble this year. But against the Twins, the D-backs finally stepped up. We saw Madison Bumgarner on Friday had some great pitching. Merrill Kelly today had some great pitching. Now, we did see Luke Weaver have his first start of the season on Saturday, and it was just more bad Luke Weaver. Now you're like, what do I do with that guy? You look at Paul Goldschmidt, what he's doing for the Cardinals right now, and you see Carson Kelly and Luke Weaver, you're like, man, that's a serious regret right there. But the D-backs had a great weekend. Christian Walker, just the perfect microcosm of the season for him on Sunday because he had the 2 solo shots like you mentioned, but first and third, nobody out. He strikes out in Sunday's game. So Christian Walker, big time power bat this season. He's like top 5 in baseball in home runs, but runners in scoring position, he can't do it. He used to be the backup first baseman for Chris Davis in Baltimore, and he's basically turned into Chris Davis. A lot of home runs, but in terms of when you actually need him to come through at runners in scoring position, he doesn't do it too often. So the D-backs had a big spoiler weekend against the Twins, a team where you don't really see too often because of the interleague play there in the American League. But I had a really fun weekend and a really fun time because going into Sunday's game, D-backs were 1-1 with the Twins. I didn't know if they were going to continue to struggle like they've been doing recently, but they stepped up to the plate and they took down Minnesota. Thank you, D-backs. And thank you, Buddy Kennedy, who had a great weekend and a grand salami on Sunday.
Yeah, tell people about who Buddy Kennedy is. I'm loving me some Buddy Kennedy.
Yeah, maybe I buried the lead there by not talking about Buddy Kennedy. But he's just been a dude that's just been in the minor leagues, and he was never really rated as like a top prospect for the D-backs, even though when you look at his numbers, it's kind of like Seth Beerish. You're like, this guy's batting .290 with a 900 OPS, 20-plus home runs in the minor leagues. Like, why does he not have more acclaim? And as soon as he's called up, he starts to put in work immediately on Friday's game. He's got his whole family in the stands. His grandpa's on the broadcast. And what does he do with grandpapa on the broadcast? Buddy Kennedy gets his first major league hit. Today, he got his first major league home run with the bases loaded. He had a triple on Saturday. He has a hit and a run scored in every game this series. Buddy Kennedy has been the juice and the energy the D-backs have needed because, like we keep saying, they have been struggling against bad teams the last 2 weeks, and Buddy Kennedy injected the life that the D-backs desperately needed this weekend.
He is. I'll just say it. He is the second best player in baseball from Millville, New Jersey. The second
Okay.
best.
Yeah, we know who the first best. I know who the first best.
First best is Mike Trout. We're gonna get to Mike Trout in a second because he had a weekend too. Hey, for graduates of Millville, New Jersey, this was quite a weekend. But yeah, I mean, first of all, he's come up. He's only 23 years old. He's played 3 or 4 more games in the major leagues more than I have.
Mhm.
But he has given the team a little bit of a spark, and it's important for teams like the Diamondbacks who are building up. Obviously they had a dreadful 2021, and they're playing in a division where there are 3 very good teams in this division, but they're holding their own to a degree. They are not. There are a slew of teams who are on pace to lose 100 games. I mean, we're going to talk about the Pirate game because it was a great story happening in the Pirate game today. But the Pirates have lost. I think it's 12 of their last 13 games, or 12 of their last 14 games. It's something ridiculous like that, and they're in 3rd place. That's the 3rd place Pittsburgh Pirates, because 3 teams in that division are minor league teams. So you see, despite the fact that, the Goldschmidt trade does not look like it's going to work out, and any images of Aston dancing in your head for Luke Weaver might be gone. Maybe he could transition to the pen. Maybe, look at, you wanted him to be the next Adam Wainwright, but if you could get the next, Jesus, I don't know, who's a decent middle?
I was thinking like maybe like Nafalti Feliz back with the Rangers.
Nafalti Feliz, or the way it was Jeremy Affeldt. Jeremy Affeldt was with the Giants all those years. Hey, you know what? You can do worse than having a player like that. And do you what? I know there's been a lot of chatter of whether or not Madison Bumgarner is on the trade block or not.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather they keep him. First of all, Bumgarner doesn't have anything to prove in the postseason. He's obviously, in the 2010s, he put together one of the great postseason runs in baseball history. But also, you know what? If you're trying to put together something and be somewhat halfway decent on the field, keep your former World Series ace and see where it goes.
I'm just Bumgarner at $20 million a year over the next couple of years. I'd rather just move off of him and put some young guy there or someone else. If he was, a little bit better, or maybe if that contract was a little bit cheaper, I would agree with you. But because he's been so good so far this season, and I really think it's because of the Brent Strom effect. As soon as Madison Bumgarner is not with Brent Strom, I think he's going to go back to looking like how he looked the first couple of years in Arizona, where he really wasn't a very good pitcher at all. So I would trade him right now while he's still good, while he's at the top of his game, while he is, with those rose-colored lenses of the Brent Strom effect, and trade him while his value is at the highest peak.
And get good value from, like you got for Goldschmidt. Is that what you're saying? How's that working out?
Hey, I don't. Okay, but you think if Bumgarner gets traded, he's gonna all of a sudden enter the Cy Young conversation? Because Goldschmidt's looking like, I mean, leaving Arizona.
Probably gonna happen. We'll inevitably be traded to St. Louis and throw back-to-back no hitters. With the effect that had, other than keeping, sort of serving notice for contending teams. I'm sure when Minnesota looked at the schedule, saw Arizona was coming up, they thought maybe that was, they're going to win 2 out of 3, and they didn't. And the interesting thing is that there's a team that is coming at the Minnesota Twins full steam ahead. And everyone thought it was going to be the Chicago White Sox this year. And lo and behold, who's only 1 game back of the Minnesota Twins in an extraordinarily winnable division? It's not the White Sox. The White Sox are still sub 500 at that point. What's in a name? The Guardians. Ooh. The Guardians are on an absolute roll. In fact, let's just go back for a second here. I'm going to baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth.
I'm there right now.
On May 29th, May 29, okay, less than a month ago, the Guardians were 5 games under 500. They just lost the series to the Detroit Tigers, who, mind you, are not good. And they lost that 2-1, and the Guardians fell to 5 games under, floating around there. Also sub 500 at that time were the Boston Red Sox and the Atlanta Braves. But I digress. Since that day, the only one team in the American, actually only two teams in baseball have had a better winning percentage. And one of those teams is not the Atlanta Braves, who went on that incredible winning streak. Only the Yankees, who are 16-1 since then, that's a whole other thing.
Wow.
And the Phillies, who I bet you didn't realize this, are 15-4. I guess firing Joe Giardi wasn't the worst thing to happen to that team. Cleveland have won 15 of their next 19 games. And they are doing so with everyone thought Cleveland was going to pitch well, and they have pitched very, very well. Quantrill's done well, Bieber's done well, McKenzie's done well. Their bullpen has been absolutely unhittable. But they're getting an MVP caliber season from Jose Ramirez, whose MVP candidacy is increased by the fact that he's leading that offense, and right now they're in a playoff position. But, they're getting some decent at-bats from other players, including Andres Jimenez, who was part of the Francisco Lindor trade. But look at this. This may yet be, dare I call it an Indian summer? No. Dare I call it a Guardian summer?
Yeah.
But the Guardians have dusted themselves off and are saying thank you very much, Arizona Diamondbacks. And, I'm going to be covering this more closely on Tuesday's show. But those two teams are going to face off in, this week. So what do you think about the fact that the American League Central might be a dogfight and the Chicago White Sox are on the outside looking in?
Yeah, early battle for the division coming up with those two teams matching up. But do you think, I don't know, how do you feel about this division in general, though, as maybe being World Series contenders? Because even though the Guardians are playing well and the Twins are playing well, I just don't look at them as potential real World Series contenders or anything like that. I think they're still very good, feel good stories. I'll let you jump in real quick. What do you want to say?
I don't think they're better than, I don't think the Guardians or the Twins are better than the Yankees, who are playing at a completely different level. I don't think they're better than the Astros. Over 162 games, I don't think it's a comparison. But What if one gets hot in a division series? What if one pitching set? How do you beat a team like the Yankees or like Houston? You throw a pitching staff at them that flummoxes them. That's what happened last year when Atlanta defeated Houston. Houston scored at will against Chicago and Boston. And then they couldn't hit that bullpen. Cleveland has the kind of bullpen, the way that Atlanta had last year, the way that the Kansas City Royals had in 2015, that if you're behind in the 6th or 7th, call home, get the Uber. You're not scoring off of them. And they will scratch and claw enough runs to be able to make it work. Would I favor Cleveland over, say, New York or Houston or even Tampa Bay or Toronto? Not necessarily, but the ingredients for an upset, especially for a team that has nothing to lose, in a short series, I think it would be a lot harder to beat a team like New York or Houston in a best of 7. But in a best of 5, you win one of the first 2 games, then you win one game at home, and you've set up a one game do or die. Yeah, with probably a superior pitching staff. I look at Cleveland is a very interesting team if they make it to the postseason, if their pitching staff remains this solid. And again, I'm not necessarily saying they should be favored, but any team whose strength is pitching like that has to be given at least a puncher's chance.
Yeah, I don't want to diminish their success by only looking at them through the prism of can they win the World Series or not, because I still think they're having a successful season. They've been playing, over the expectations I had for them coming into the year. And like you said, their rotation is pretty good. Shane Bieber is a beast. Their back end of their bullpen is pretty nasty as well. I just feel like their offense has a ceiling on it once you get to the postseason, just because I don't think you're going to be pitching to Jose Ramirez as much when you get to the postseason. And you're going to try and make those other guys beat you. But Jose Ramirez, you make the MVP case for him. I think one of the most underrated aspects of his game is he currently has 11 stolen bases. This is like one of the thickest boys in baseball, and the fact that he just consistently swipes 20 to 30 bags a year. Like, I don't know how he moves so quickly with that body frame, but it's absolutely phenomenal. But I just don't like this division in general. I just think it's more of a feel-good division than anything, and I think they will be competitive, and once we get to the postseason, they will probably knock out one of these teams that we think are better than the Twins or the Guardians. But I just can't see those teams win the World Series right now. But they could change my expectations, and maybe they make some trade deadline deals where the Guardians try to add some pieces to that lineup or whatever. But I think overall this division is more about how they're overperforming in terms of their expectations and just having a feel good season overall, and just building that foundation to maybe making a World Series the next few years.
Well, there's another thing you have to keep into account is health. And there's a possibility that when you have a veteran team like Houston, or maybe a veteran team like New York, that maybe, just maybe, their health may be nubbed down a little bit, and they wouldn't be quite as not at full strength. I don't think the Dodgers were at full strength last year when they played Atlanta. Certainly Kershaw wasn't pitching. And you got to stay healthy. And not just baseball teams. We all got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
And Millard Thomas, what do you do to stay healthy?
Oh, man, Sully, I take this thing every morning to start my day that gives me a boost of energy I need to keep going. It's called Athletic Greens. So what is AG1? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all those things. So why do I love AG1? Well, it's lifestyle friendly. Whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, it covers every kind of lifestyle. It costs you less than $3 a day, and it has over 7,000 5-star reviews, so it's reputable. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/MLB Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
All right, we're here doing our Monday crossover with Millard Thomas of the LOCKEDON Diamondbacks. I'm your pal Sully of Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Hey, we mentioned your boy, Buddy Kennedy.
My guy.
Now, there's another player we alluded to from that part of the country. That would be Mr. Michael Trout, who hit 5 home runs in 5 games, and 2 of them were the go-ahead shots that put the Angels ahead for good. I don't know if you're aware of that, but Michael Trout is good at baseball. He's very good at baseball. And you know what? He's he leads the league in OPS right now. He already has 21 homers. And let's just take a look at one thing right here. Not counting today's game, which, by the way, he homered today as well. Yeah. Today meaning Sunday. His last 14 days, he has 7 home runs in his last. It was actually 8 home runs in his last 14 games. Going into today, his last 14 games, he batted .351 with an OPS of 1.515. He is having one of his best seasons ever, and this is coming from a guy who's already going to the Hall of Fame. He already has his highest home run total since 2019. Okay. Now, granted, one of them, one year he only played 36 games last year, and the 2020 season was the COVID year. But still, 20 home runs ain't bad. And again, it's gut punch time, because once again, it's on a wasted season.
Yeah.
You know?
It could be. We'll still see if the Angels can turn it around because at one point they were competitive in the playoff mix, and they're 9 games back right now. Their division leader, Houston Astros, but they're still not too far back in the wild card race if they're able to turn around. I mean, they're 3 games back of 500, so they're not totally out of it just yet. And Mike Trout, like you said, I mean, I don't know how many words we can use to describe him because I mean, of course, everyone already gives him his flowers and already considers him one of the greatest baseball players of all time, and he's having another one of those seasons. And there was some doubt, some question marks heading into this season just because he's been kind of injured the last 2 years. So there's been some question marks as to whether maybe Mike Trout's starting to be in the decline of his career because he is entering his early 30s. And maybe he just on the back nine of his career because we saw Albert Pujols, those first 10 years with St. Louis, one of the greatest first 10 years ever all time. And then the next 10 years, he really started to hit the decline and just was not the same player as opposed to those first 10 years. So maybe Mike Trout was going to enter the similar arc of his career. And it hasn't happened just yet because so far this season for Mike Trout is off to one of the best seasons of all time for his own career standards. And he's looking dominant once again. And if the Yankees weren't as good as they are, and if Judge wasn't leading the league in home runs already, Mike Trout might be number one in that MVP conversation. And he's going to be. I mean, the American League MVP race right now with Judge, Jose Ramirez that we've talked about, and Mike Trout, like it's going to be loaded. And you also can't forget about Shohei Ohtani because even though he doesn't seem to have as much, claim or star power as he did last year, I think we're going to look up at the end of the season and be like, man, Ohtani still had a 260 average, but 900 OPS, 25 to 30 home runs, 25 stolen bases, and he's still going to be the best pitcher on his Angels team. So I think this MVP race in the American League is going to be a blast, and Mike Trout could end up taking home his 5th MVP award, which is just insane.
Now I'm going to bring up a game.
Okay.
And this is one of those turning point games because it involves another center fielder who's in the news this week. In game 2 of the 2014 division series between Kansas City and the Angels, Mike Trout came up to lead off the bottom of the 9th against Jason Frazier of Kansas City. And if Mike Trout had homered against Jason Frazier, it would have been a walk-off home run. The Angels would have won the game, and that would have been the first postseason signature moment of Mike Trout's career. He popped up to the catcher. Pujols and Howie Kendrick also popped up. The game was scoreless was tied going to the 11th, and with one on and nobody out, Lorenzo Cain singled, and then came around and scored on Eric Hosmer's home run. And it was Cain who sparked the game-winning rally, not Mike Trout. And the next year, and he was the ALCS MVP that year when the Royals went to the World Series. And the next year, scored from first on what was essentially a bloop single, or I guess it was a double, that was the go-ahead run in the pennant clincher. And Lorenzo Cain had his signature postseason moment when we're celebrating his career. They show that mad dash from first base to score the go-ahead run, what was the pennant clincher, and ultimately the Royals went on to win the World Series against the Mets. Cain was DFA'd this week as he's been slumping badly for the Milwaukee Brewers. But good on the Milwaukee Brewers for waiting until Cain passed the 10-year threshold of his career, therefore making him eligible for pensions and all sorts of other things. This was a guy who twice made it to the MVP top 10 vote, ALCS MVP, Gold Glove winner, part of the Royals team that went to back-to-back World Series, winning the World Series in 2015. And if this is the end of his career, then he had that's a wonderful career. He checked as many things off as you'd want to have on your proverbial bucket list as a Major League Baseball player. But I think about the difference between Trout and Cain. Obviously, Trout is 1,000 times a better player than Cain. But we look back, and Cain has a couple of moments when we look at his highlight reel of those October moments. And, it's a shame that Trout hasn't had many opportunities. But one of the few opportunities he did have was a game that Cain came through and not Trout. Again, I'm not comparing the two. The one's better. That obviously Trout has had the better career. But the legend of a player like Trout is based upon how they do in the big moments. And it's not Trout's fault that the Angels stink, and they continue to stink. But if he homered off of Jason Frazier, not even Wade Davis or Greg Holland, Jason Frazier, not a bad pitcher, but if he had homered off of Jason Frazier, that would be your Mike Trout moment that I'm missing in his career.
Yeah, that's my biggest gripe when talking about the Mike Trout legacy and story arc. It's just the fact that he doesn't have any postseason moments. And we've talked about this on nauseam on this podcast, my own podcast, because I'm the quote unquote Mike Trout troll. But it's just because I want to see that big postseason moment, or it doesn't have to be a big postseason moment. I want to see something from him on the postseason stage. And like we've talked about it, it's not all his fault because you can only do so much as a one-man crew. He's done everything, from an offensive and defensive standpoint as a player. But I want to see what he is with his back against the wall in the biggest pressurized moments, because I can't just assume Mike Trout, the great player in the regular season, that translates to the postseason. I can't just assume that great player we see for 162 games is going to be the same great player in the postseason, because we do have the Clayton Kershaws of the world, who is one of the greatest pitchers of all time in the regular season, and then stunk it up repeatedly in the postseason to a point where he's a guy who you just couldn't trust in the big games once you got to the postseason. And this is the guy who is one of the all-timers in the regular season. So I can't just say, yeah, Mike Trout's the greatest player of all time just because of what he does in the regular season. I got to see something from him in the postseason. Like we said, it's not all his fault, but thankfully, even at the age of 30, 31, whoever Mike Trout is, he's showing he's still got a lot left in the tank. He's still an MVP caliber player. He's still arguably the best player in baseball. So I still think we got a lot more time, Trout. I still think we got a few more years, but I do want to see him do something on the postseason stage, because if we look up at the end of the day, 20 years into Mike Trout's career, is the best offensive statistics all time in the regular season, but maybe 1 to 3 postseason hits. I'm going to look back and say, yeah, great player, but kind of a disappointing career.
Wow. Tough crowd. By the way, I must make a little bit of an apology to Jason Frazier, who at the time was a 36-year-old journeyman for Kansas City. But in his he played parts of 2 different seasons with Kansas City, and in 49 games, he did pitch to a 1.54 ERA. He was an effective pitcher out of the bullpen for Kansas City. So obviously, if you make it to the major leagues, you're a tremendous player. So he's obviously had a good year that year. I'm just saying, a 36-year-old journeyman reliever, it's not like he was staring down Mariano Rivera in his prime. I'm just saying. By the way, Albert Pujols also played in that game and popped up. And Albert Pujols got a very nice reception by the Red Sox. The Red Sox did a good job honoring Pujols, who was part of the 2004 Cardinal team who lost to the Red Sox. I don't know if anyone noticed the Red Sox won the 2004 World Series. But his fellow native of the Dominican Republic, David Ortiz, who are both Ortiz and Pujols are American citizens now, but they had a nice ceremony with Ortiz. They gave him a number from the Green Monster, and good for him. Good for the Red Sox for giving really one of the best players who had his share of postseason highlight moments in his time with the St. Louis Cardinals.
And Pujols is one of those guys that deserve a retirement tour. Some of these guys, they think that they deserve the retirement tour. They're like, hey, guys, it's my last year. I know I made a few all-star teams. I want to go to every home crowd and get an award. Like, no, you don't deserve the plaque. You weren't that good. You might not even be a Hall of Famer. Albert Pujols, consummate professional, first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players of our generation. He's one of those guys that deserve the retirement tour.
And you know who's also going to deserve that retirement tour? Jack Suwinski. Jack Suwinski, who came over to the Pittsburgh Pirates in the trade involving Adam Frazier last July or August, whenever they pulled that. July is when they pulled that off. He has now played in 47 games. 23-year-old player who is a outfielder for the Pirates. And today, on Father's Day, as I remember, we all love our dads, we should. I don't know.
Let's not assume.
Some people don't, and some dads aren't worth loving. That was awkward. I loved my dad. May he rest in peace. His favorite team was the Giants, and Jack Sawinski against the Giants hit 3 home runs. Count them 3, including a walk-off home run. So,
Yeah, I think he had the walk-off home run against the D-backs a couple weekends ago as well.
Yeah, so he's don't pitch to Sawinski with a game on the line. The guy's got a big swing. Now, of course, that National League West battle is the Giants lost the game to Pittsburgh. There was a couple of key injuries. Los Angeles, who lost to Cleveland today, lost Mookie Betts to a rib injury. Not sure how long that's going to be. And the Padres, who for a while actually passed Los Angeles for first place, they fell back. They lost again to Colorado, and they're going to be missing Manny Machado for a few weeks, maybe even longer. And so they're going to continue to move forward without Tatis and now without Machado. And you might see that NL West race tightening a little bit. It would tighten a little bit more if the Giants could get Sawinski out.
Yeah, and talking to Javier Reyes, who I'm going to do a crossover with, I think tomorrow for the D-backs versus San Diego Padres series, he's talked about he thinks Manny Machado has been the MVP of the National League so far because of how much he's been valuable to that Padres offense without a Fernando Tatis. Because you look a bit down that lineup, a lot of guys outside Machado aren't having great seasons. It's really about Machado and the pitching of that Padres rotation with the Joe Musgroves and the Darvishes and the Manayas and the Mackenzie Gores, who a rookie has been really phenomenal this season. Yes. So taking Manny Machado out of that lineup is going to be very detrimental to that Padres offense. And I want to see how they respond and how they bounce back. And who knows? I think Cano has been in the minor leagues. They call someone like him up. Ha-Seong Kim, maybe he hopefully steps up to the plate a little bit. Maybe Jay Cronenworth, some of their infield guys, hopefully they step up. Maybe Luke Voigt can tap into some of that power that we saw back in New York. Haven't really seen it too much in San Diego this season. So I think it's going to have to be a collective effort by the San Diego Padres, and they're just going to really hope that their rotation, their bullpen continues to step up, because they're probably going to have to win some really just nasty games over the next few days without Manny Machado in that lineup, and it's probably going to have to be some close scoring games that they win.
Well, look, it's going to be tough to win. It is no surefire bet that the Padres are going to win if you take Machado out of that lineup. What are you giggling about? Are you giggling about the fact that BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info? You can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's Stanley Cup playoffs and Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores and podcasts and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Whoa. Head to the website today and use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, we're here. We're going to do one more segment here. Now, look, the New York Yankees had a rare hiccup. They faced off Toronto and Tampa Bay, and it looked like they were going to sweep both teams out of the dump. And they had a very rare bullpen mishap, and Toronto wound up winning the final game. It was 10-9. But they swept they took 2 out of 3 from the Twins, swept the Cubs, swept the Rays, and took 2 out of 3 from Toronto. You can't ask for a better streak than what the Yankees have done since allowing that walk-off against the Chicago White Sox on my birthday, on my 50th birthday on May 14. And the Yankees were already 24-9 at that point. Mm-hmm. Since then, the Yankees are 25-8. I mean, they are on such a streak that even if they play 500 ball the rest of the way, they'll still win 97 games. Yeah. And they're probably not going to play 500 ball the rest of the way. So what I'm saying is,
what are you saying?
I'm saying things are clicking for the Yankees.
Yeah.
I'm saying things. You know what? I mean, they had good pitching last year, and their bats were unreliable. And now you have Judge having the type of season he's having. Nestor Cortez. By the way, let me say one thing about Nestor Cortez. Not only is he pitching like an all-star, He's insanely likable. And he did a mic'd up thing for Yes, where you just couldn't. I'm a native New Englander, classic Yankee hater, and I can't help but find him to be this, this lovable, fun guy. If you're a Yankee fan, savor this season because things are clicking for this Yankee team. That look, they're obviously making the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it's just right now, this is a World Series or bust team. And I trashed the Yankees all off season for the off season that they had. And I got to eat a little crow, at least as we're here. It's late June. Okay. It's late June, which means July and the midpoint of the season is right around the corner. And the Yankees are on pace to win 118 games.
Yeah.
You got to give them credit.
If you go back to our preseason prediction podcast, I'm not sure if we had them making the postseason, Sully.
Nope,
So
yeah, I didn't.
We're gonna have to eat some doo-doo probably at the end of this season or do something because it hasn't been good for us on our predictions from that front. But the state of New York baseball right now, I mean, it's just looking phenomenal. Both
amazing.
Both the Mets and the Yankees. But the biggest problem maybe for the Yankees, the biggest issue that could be on the horizon is maybe the injection of Aroldis Chapman back to that bullpen because it seems like they seem addicted to putting him in as the ninth inning closer guy when we all know it should be Clay Holmes.
There's no excuse to put anyone but Clay Holmes in the closer spot. I'm sorry. At some point, you set a closer out to pasture. The Yankees, since putting Clay Holmes in there, have lost 3 games?
He's nasty. I mean, what's his ERA? Like a point?
I can think of 3 games last year that Chapman lost that were grotesque. Who would have thought that Clay Holmes was going to be the key acquisition made in the last couple of years, which just goes to show you don't always know. But another thing you don't always know, 2 teams that I picked to win the division are now with losing records and not even in second place in their division as we're entering late June.
Who?
Chicago White Sox, who are being managed by the late Tony La Russa.
Okay.
And the Seattle Mariners, who are being managed by Scott Service. Now, the Mariners pushed their chips in the center of the table. They brought in Robbie Ray. They made the big trade with Cincinnati. They won 90 games last year, and this was maybe not World Series or bust, but we have the longest postseason drought, not only of baseball, but with hockey,
all of them,
the NBA, the NFL. I think there are USFL teams that have made the postseason more recently than the Seattle Mariners. 2001, there are players in the major leagues who were born after the last trip Seattle took to the postseason. And so this year was all about breaking that streak. And the fact that not only are they not in first place, but they're losing a pile of games that they should be winning. And I actually don't. Did they win today? I don't remember.
I don't even know.
No, they lost. That's right, because Mike Trout hit 5 home runs in 5 games, so they got their butts whipped by an underachieving Angels team. And so, look at La Russa has been making lousy decision after lousy decision. White Sox fans are pulling their hair out. They're pulling their hair out, and I'm assuming La Russa's pulling his hair out and then putting clumps of poorly colored hair back on his head.
God.
And someone has to take the fall for the Mariners. Now, let me throw this out you, okay? The Angels fired Joe Maddon, who everyone going into the season thought was an elite Hall of Fame manager. Mm-hmm. But the Angels are also a very dysfunctional organization. They change their managers too often. They change their GMs too often. They have an owner who seems to be living in the past. Now, I do not believe that Joe Maddon suddenly got dumb. I think this was a poorly constructed team. If I were the Seattle Mariners and I see Joe Maddon's floating out there as a fired manager, wouldn't I see this as an opportunity to swipe a Hall of Fame manager? Kind of like in 1986, the Chicago White Sox fired their manager, Tony La Russa, And the A's said, oh, wait a second. And they picked him up. And suddenly we found out La Russa wasn't dumb. It was a dysfunctional organization. Now, that same La Russa, who's already in the Hall of Fame and has nothing to prove and is completely outmatched, and I'm not taking anything against his career. He's obviously a wonderful manager, but eventually you got to hang him up. Wouldn't a native of Illinois with a World Series championship under his belt, who's also floating out there, who's also named Joe, be an interesting fit for that team? What if Joe Giardi takes over the White Sox and Joe Maddon takes over the Mariners, and those two teams get a high-profile new manager in the team and may give them a little spark? Thoughts?
You know what? I don't hate it, Sully, and I kind of like it. I kind of feel the vibe of Joe Girardi to the Chicago White Sox. I don't know, but that personality seems to fit better with him in Chicago as opposed to him in Philadelphia. I don't know, something about that mixing, right? And then Joe Maddon, I mean, he's kind of the curse breaker with what he did with Tampa Bay and Chicago. Now, he couldn't break any curses with the Angels, but the Angels never fixed their biggest issue, which was the pitching. The pitching is terrible the whole tenure during Mike Trout career, and he just never addressed that. Despite them upgrading the managerial position, they never upgraded that rotation, so it was never going to work. So him, Mariners, I think would be pretty interesting. And the Mariners are a franchise who we know longest postseason drought, but at least they're trying to make moves and get better. Like we saw what they did with the Winker deal and the Suarez deal and acquiring Robbie Ray. Now it is funny because on a podcast with Javier Reyes, we did our winners and losers podcast, and I said, big loser, anyone who thought Robbie Ray was legit, because Robbie Ray is not that guy. He's not that guy. Sully, what do you want to say? Convince me otherwise.
I'll say that he got off to a disappointing start, but his last couple of starts have been really good.
That's
and I mean, let me go to baseballreference.com. It's Ingrich's website. The history of the planet Earth. Is he going to win the Cy Young Award this year? No, he does lead the league in innings pitched. So he gives him a little bit of, he gives him some durability. All right. And maybe last year was that fluke. Okay. But in his last, three starts, he struck out 17, 19, but he's let up 4 earned runs in his last 19 innings.
Listen,
and so
Robbie Ray, he can give you some length. The issue is he's going to also give up home runs. He's going to strike out people, but he's going to go 6 innings, 5 earned runs, and 9 strikeouts almost every start. And it's just going to be frustrating. He also loves to walk people. I just don't know if he's worth the $20 million that the
maybe not, but I think that maybe, just maybe, you put a better manager in that situation, and maybe you sort of jolt that team,
Yeah, I agree. I think from overall standpoint of the team and just the dysfunctionality of the overall franchise, I think Joe Maddon could come in there and help steer that ship. And I think he would be good for that franchise, but I don't know if he's going to fix a Robbie Ray issue unless you got Brent Strom in that organization. I don't think Robbie Ray is ever going to become the consistent Cy Young Award winner that we saw last season. I think it was a fluke, and I think he's going to go back to being the 3 true outcome guy we've seen throughout his career.
Fair enough, but I do think Joe Maddon would be a good. For a minute, because I was kicking this around in my head, and I thought, like, what if Joe Maddon replaces Tony La Russa and Joe Maddon wins with both the White Sox and the Cubs? But then I thought I thought Girardi is a better fit for the White Sox, and I thought that Maddon was a better fit for Seattle. And I think that there's a way. I know, and I've said this before. La Russa's there because of Reinsdorf. And again, get the drinking going again. I've always believed that one of Bruce Bochy's lieutenants, take a sip, my listeners who drink every time I say Bruce Bochy's lieutenants. I still understand why Roberto Kelly isn't a major league manager. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. But that being said, you have 2 guys who, if they win the World Series with another franchise, well, Joe Maddon's going to the Hall of Fame anyway. But if Girardi wins a World Series with another franchise, we may start talking about him in that situation too. But the fact of the matter is that these were 2 managers just 2 years ago were looked upon as like the most sought after managers for a franchise to pick up. And now they're sitting there working on their LinkedIn page. So you have 2 teams that are unbelievably disappointing this year. Give it a shot.
What do you think is taking the bigger PR hit? Because I feel like it's Joe Girardi. He feels like I just feel like there's so much built-in equity and like prestige when it comes to Joe Maddon and like mystique behind him. I feel like there's a lot less, fandom toward Joe Girardi. I feel like he's not as respected around the league.
Oh, it's a huge disappointment for Maddon. Maddon's job was to come to the Angels and make Trout a champion. He was looked at. I mean, Girardi, while Girardi received a Manager of the Year award with the Marlins, Girardi had this reputation a little bit of like, oh, did he win because the Steinbrenner family paid a pile of money? I thought him winning with a different organization would show that he was, and I actually think he's a fine manager. I think the Philly situation may have been something out of his control, or maybe it was the wrong fit for him.
Who would you rather want though if you had a neutral team? Middle
Maddon.
Okay, that's how I feel too.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily think that's a knock on Girardi.
Mm-hmm.
I just think Maddon's a Hall of Fame manager. And
I know you're a big Joe Girardi guy. That's your guy.
I am. I think he's a smart baseball guy.
Yeah, he's been fine.
I thought the Yankees, I thought he did a wonderful job in 2017. Mm-hmm. He was the manager when they rebuilt that team, and he left the team they rebuilt without tanking, but they rebuilt, and the team that he managed in 2009 bore almost no resemblance to the team he managed in 2017, save for CC Sabathia. And by the time he left, you had the likes of Judge and Gregorius and Gary Sanchez were all key players on that team. By the time he left, that's a lot different than the team that he inherited with Pettit and Jeter and Posada and A-Rod and Rivera and with the acquisitions of Teixeira and Sabathia. I think he's a smart, fine man. He had a Marlins team who's this was there's the payroll for the Marlins that he managed in 2006. I was holding up a coin, and he had them contending into September for a wild card spot. There's a reason he won the Manager of the Year that year. There's also a reason he was fired. Apparently, he's a big pain in the butt. But maybe some teams need a pain in the butt. I don't know. I think that he's a smart enough manager that he does straddle the analytics and the traditional world. So I think that I think he would be a good fit for some teams. I just think that of the two free agent star managers out there, other than Roberto Kelly and Hensley Mullins, or also other than Schilt, who was Manager of the Year back in 2019, and now it's like, get out of here. I would rather have Maddon, but that's not a knock on Girardi.
Yeah, and for Girardi, it'll probably be a breath of fresh air after managing in New York and Philadelphia, probably the two hardest markets to be a manager in, where you're just going to be scrutinized on a daily basis. I mean, the Chicago market is not any easier, but at least you're like the secondary team in Chicago. I mean, the White Sox fans probably aren't as brutal as those Chicago Cubs fans. So I think it would be a nice change of pace for Joe Girardi after being in New York and Philadelphia.
I would like to see Girardi manage a team that is like from the ground up, like Cincinnati. Like sort of like be there for the rebuild.
Oh, I got one for you. How about this? Because this is his final year of his contract. He's only on a 1-year deal. Torey Lovullo could be out after this season because I'm not a big Torey Lovullo guy. How about we bring in Joe Maddon and Joe Girardi to Arizona, baby?
I think Girardi would be a great manager for Arizona. I do. Ooh. I think that because they're not a bad team. No, they're just not a 100-loss team. This is not a tanking team, but there is some talent on the team, but it needs. I would be all for that. I think Girardi managing Arizona and with some of the expectations being not sky high, I think that'd be a good choice. Yeah. Look, we brought full circle.
Yeah, full circle moment. And a lot of these things with the managers, you also can't overlook the front office because like we said with Joe Maddon, like a lot of the success of the managers is going to be predicated on what the front office does to actually support the managers and put a team on the field that could help win. And when you're Joe Maddon and you're the manager of the Angels and you just never get any pitches, it's never going to be a competitive team. So hopefully if wherever these Joes go, if it is the Seattles or the Chicago White Sox, like we talk about, hopefully these front office and ownerships can also help support the managers that they hire.
Well, I support you and I'm going to hire you. So, hey, Millard, another good crossover. Tell people where they can follow your show.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter, my personal account, at CreatorThomas24 for my personal account, or look up Locked On Diamondbacks on both Twitter and Instagram. Just type it in that little search bar. I'm sure you can find it.
And me, I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. This particular podcast, we're at Locked On MLB Pods on both Twitter and on Instagram. Hey, it's the 20th day of June. Hope you had a great weekend. And it looks like we're going into late June, and we're going to see some of these pennant races start to make sense. What happens when it turns to July? You've got one more month to make the big trades and figure out what kind of contender you have. We are in the middle third of the baseball season. This has been the Locked On Crossover with Locked On MLB and Locked On Diamondbacks. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Call me Sully. That's Millard Thomas. Don't call him Sully. Call him a fist pumper right there, right there.